In the 13th century, long before globalization, long before modern universities, and long before Christianity would take root deeply in lands like India, a quiet Dominican friar in Europe began shaping ideas that would travel farther than he ever did. He never stepped foot in India. He never preached in Asia. He never saw the cultures that would one day adopt his theology, and yet his influence would reach there anyway. His name was Thomas Aquinas, a man whose thoughts would become the intellectual backbone of the Catholic Church, influencing theology, education, and even the way Christianity would be taught and understood in India centuries later. This is the story of how one man's mind crossed oceans without ever leaving his desk. Thomas Aquinas was born in 1225 in Roccasecca, Italy, into a noble family. From the beginning, his life seemed destined for power and prestige. His family expected him to become a Benedictine abbot, someone influential, wealthy, and respected. But Thomas had something else in mind. Instead of choosing status, he chose poverty. Instead of power, he chose study. He joined the Dominican order, a decision so controversial that his own family imprisoned him for nearly a year to stop him. But Thomas remained firm, because what drove him wasn't ambition, it was truth. Thomas believed something radical for his time, that faith and reason are not enemies. They are partners. At a time when many feared philosophy, especially the works of Aristotle, Thomas embraced it. He studied deeply under Albertus Magnus and began synthesizing Greek philosophy with Christian theology. His question was simple but profound. Can human reason help us understand God? His answer would change everything. Thomas's greatest work, the Summa Theologica, wasn't just a book. It was a system, a framework, a way of understanding reality itself. In it, he explored the nature of God, 5, the purpose of human life, ethics, morality, and law, the relationship between faith and intellect. He wrote not just for scholars, but for students, missionaries, and teachers. And this is where India enters the story. Because while Thomas wrote in Europe, his system was perfectly designed for transmission. It was structured, logical, teachable, and that made it portable. Thomas Aquinas died in 1274 at the age of 49. He left behind unfinished work, but what he completed was enough to shape centuries. In 1323, he was canonized as a saint. In 1567, he was declared a doctor of the Church, and his theology became the official intellectual foundation of Catholic education worldwide, including, eventually, India. Centuries after Thomas's death, European missionaries began arriving in India. Figures like Francis Xavier and later Jesuit scholars brought with them not just the gospel, but a way of explaining it. That way was deeply influenced by Aquinas. Missionaries needed more than faith. They needed arguments, logic, dialogue tools. India already had rich philosophical traditions, Hindu, Buddhist, Jain. To engage these traditions, Christianity needed intellectual depth, and Aquinas provided exactly that. As Christianity grew in India, seminaries were established. Priests needed training. And what did they study? They studied Thomas Aquinas. His works became foundational in theology classes, moral philosophy, apologetics, ethics. Even today, many Catholic seminaries in India still teach Thomistic philosophy, not because it is European, but because it is universal in structure. India is not just religious, it is philosophically complex. Engaging with traditions like Vedanta required more than preaching. It required reasoning. Aquinas' method, question, objection, response, became a powerful tool. His approach allowed Indian theologians to compare concepts of God, discuss metaphysics, engage respectfully with other traditions. Without Aquinas, this dialogue would have been far more difficult. Indian Catholic theologians began adapting Aquinas. They didn't just copy him, they interpreted him. They used his ideas to explain Christian doctrine in Indian terms, engage local philosophy, develop contextual theology. This led to a uniquely Indian expression of Catholic thought, one that was faithful to Rome, but rooted in India. To understand the impact of Thomas Aquinas on Christianity in India, we need to move beyond biography and into influence, because Aquinas' role is not visible in the way a missionary's is. He did not baptize converts in India. He did not build churches in Kerala or Goa. He did not walk the streets of Chennai or Goa, but his ideas did. And ideas, unlike people, do not need ships. They travel through systems. The most important way Aquinas influenced India was through intellectual infrastructure. When the Catholic Church expanded globally, it did not expand randomly. It expanded with a system of education. That system required consistency. Priests trained in one part of the world needed to think in continuity with those in another. Aquinas provided that consistency. His theology became the standard language of Catholic reasoning. So when missionaries came to India, they were not improvising. They were operating within a framework that had already been tested, refined, and accepted. This had several major consequences. First, it allowed Christianity to present itself not just as a faith, but as a philosophy. In India, this was essential. Indian religious traditions are deeply philosophical. Concepts like Brahman, Atman, karma, and moksha are not just beliefs, they are intellectual systems. Without a comparable system, Christianity would have struggled to engage meaningfully. Aquinas gave Christianity that system. His metaphysics, especially his understanding of being, causality, and the nature of God, allowed missionaries and theologians to enter into real dialogue with Indian thought. Second, Aquinas shaped the educational model of Indian Catholicism. Seminaries in India did not develop independently. They followed global Catholic standards, and those standards were Thomistic. This means generations of Indian priests were trained to think logically, argue systematically, approach theology with structure. This created a clergy that could operate both pastorally and intellectually. Third, Aquinas influenced the development of Indian Catholic theology. Indian theologians did not simply repeat Aquinas, they adapted him. They asked, how can Thomistic ideas be expressed in Indian categories? How can concepts like natural law relate to Dharma? How can Aquinas' understanding of God engage with Advaita philosophy? This process led to a form of inculturation. Aquinas became a bridge, not a barrier. Fourth, Aquinas contributed to the stability of doctrine in a diverse environment. India is religiously plural. In such a context, maintaining doctrinal clarity is difficult. Aquinas' precise definitions on grace, sin, virtue, and God helped preserve theological consistency. This was crucial for unity within the Church. Fifth, Aquinas indirectly influenced interreligious respect. His method does not dismiss opposing views. It engages them. He presents objections fairly before responding. This approach aligns well with dialogue in India, where debate and philosophical exchange are deeply valued. Finally, Aquinas' impact in India reveals something larger about history. It shows that influence is not always geographical. Aquinas never traveled to India, but his ideas were designed in such a way that they could. They were structured, rational, universal in ambition, and because of that, they transcended culture. In a sense, Aquinas represents a different kind of missionary, not one who travels physically, but one whose ideas travel through minds. His legacy in India is not found in monuments. It is found in classrooms, in seminaries, in theological debates, in the way questions are asked and answered. And perhaps that is the most powerful kind of influence, because it does not just change what people believe, it changes how they think. Thomas Aquinas never saw India, but India, in many ways, has seen the world through him.